All right. So I'm John Fernandez. This is my honors project video. I decided to make an educational organization backend. Um, and what it's designed to do is it's designed to allow teachers to put their resources, grading, attendance, basically everything that they need to do in one place, while also allowing administrators to be part of that same, those same resources, those same, you know, uh, to see the classroom as it's seen in the app, to see how their grading's going, to see everything going on, and for parents to see that as well. So uh, I did this because as I was a teacher for 5 years, and there were so many different apps that I had to use for everything. And um, one of the biggest issues is that I had so much technology, but none of it worked together. None of it really did everything. So having everything in one place could really, if it works and it works well, could save or give teachers a lot more productivity and allow them to focus on students more. So I decided to go with Rust, and for a couple of reasons. One of them is that schools and school districts are kind of resource constrained. So they need to provide what they need and to provide it well at a lower cost. It's a good idea to use Rust because Rust is fast and efficient, but it's also secure, and school districts also need to have their data secure. So I used SQLite as the backend. That's one of the libraries that I used. I'm not likely to use it again, and if I do proceed with this app in the future, I'm going to upgrade it to a full SQL server or maybe Postgres. It depends on how it goes. The other external library I used was Actix Web, and that is a web server with a REST API web server. And so you'll see that I have that here. Let me quickly go over some of the challenges. The SQLite library that I used had some really iffy like function calls and API calls. It was not easy to work with. It turned after I had already integrated it and used it for a good amount of code, I found out that there was a much better library, SQLX, on it with Rust, and so I'll be using that in the future. Again, as part of a Postgres backend or MySQL backend, whatever I end up using. So let me just go through the structure a little bit. I have different files here are doing different things. Anything with the DB prefix means database. So it's something to do with the database. And you'll see that because the function calls were so wonky, I kind of had to separate a lot of it out to make it easier to read and easier to work with. But I did each type of action in one file. So the initialization of the database is here, where I've created all the tables. Remember that I wanted a lot of different user types to be able to use this database. And so I had to create a users table that's referenced by the other user types within an organization. So I have an organization table too. So you can be an administrator of this organization, and then it's also linked to a specific user account because it references the user ID right here. So then I have schools that reference back to organizations. You could have somebody who actually manages the backend for that particular educational organization. That would be their super admin. We have different relationship tables. I've made sure that administrator and school was many to many so that a school could have many administrators, and that a group of schools could have a superintendent that could also access the database and all the information through the app. Teacher schools, made sure that a teacher could be at multiple schools. I made other, let's go through the other files because there's a lot of information to go through. Insert is just, I had this here just so that I could have a place where it is just calling the actual insertion into the database. And then I had types that I was mapping. I didn't use object relational management because I wanted to make sure that the SQL calls that I was using were the specific, what I was actually trying to do and not something that was sort of what I was trying to do. So I had a user type, I had, constructor functions for that. And then I would have getter functions for their different attributes. And so using those types, I had something, this file here, object to row means that I'm going from the type to the row to insert it into the database. So I would go, I would have it basically just verify that that it's fine. Like, oh, I want to insert a family into the database. Does the family have a name? Okay, fine. Insert it into the database if it's good. I think user was the most complicated, but all of this, yeah, users. You see, because the user has to have has to have a valid birthday. So I wrote a birthday checking function. Valid email. The email rules are a little, crazy. So I didn't get to all the rules for emails, but I did check a few things on emails. Is the email valid? Do they have a valid first name, last name? I didn't get to hashing the password, but it at least will store the password and it won't retrieve the password back to the user if they ask for it. I didn't get user login either, but anyway, so then I also had a retrieve file where you can retrieve the information from the database. And there I used a more programmatic approach, less just like this is every single table and this is a function for this table. And it used a programmatic approach here. Row to object. So if I'm going from the SQL row back to the type, this file will handle it. Verifies the different checks that I have. My REST API is right here. Again, I used Actix. Here's the code that starts the server right here. And it tells you what, well, I didn't have it completely set up, but it's bound to that. So I'm sending that out. And you see I've already started the server before the video started. And I have all of these REST API services to get and set and post all of the types that were mentioned, that I just mentioned. And I have some tests here, and we'll run a few API calls in a minute. But I wrote a good number of tests that for a lot of the insertion functions, make sure like if I make a change, everything works fine. It's got a lot of mistakes from me, which is good. Still working. The tests are still working at this point. And so let me just run a few API calls so that I can show you that it works. I have, we have to post some users before we do anything. In fact, let me show you the front page. So if you go to the URL that the server is bound to, then you can see that it tells you the table statistics for each of the tables. Currently, no users, no submissions, no assignments, no family members, etc. But if I post some users, and notice username is automatically generated. And it's a little bit complicated why, but basically if I couldn't rely on email addresses being unique because not every student will have an email address, even if one is provided by the school. I can't force that onto a school. I can't guarantee that. So you have to basically generate the username. And I'm going to do it from the first and last name and then add a suffix based on how many John Fernandez's have, have been added to this database. So now I can get the user. So I posted it a few times. Let's reload this. So you see I've hit the post user thing 4 times. So I've added 4 users. They all have different email, or they all have the they all have the same first and last name because I have to do this quickly, but they're there in the database. And then I can get the user. There they are. I can get user ID 1. Let me try to let me try to post a school and see what happens. Because if you remember, every school needs to have, oh, I'm sorry, post school, not get school here. Every school has to have an organization. Oh, look, the organization ID is not in the organization table. So I have to post an organization before I can post a school. So I'm posting an organization here. And now I should be able to post a school. And now everything's set. I reload this. There I have a school, I have an organization, and 4 users. I'm going to cut it off here because I know I've already ran way over 5 minutes. It was just a lot to talk about. So thank you very much for considering me for the honors project. And I hope you have a great day.